into their own waters that are just a few miles off their coast. But now they've launched missile cruisers deep into the Gulf in a menacing fashion, and then their admiral comes out and says, we're ready to engage you. And this on the heels of Israel coming out and blowing the war trumpets and saying, we're getting ready to hit Iran and hit them hard, and we're getting ready for tank wars. We're getting ready for tank wars. What on earth are they talking about? So all over the world, we see the makings of a World War I or a World War II. We see the battle lines being drawn. We see everything escalating into the stratosphere. We see the New World Order, what I call chaos, right out of the Get Smart. You can call it Spectre if you want, but that's the establishment throwing it in our face. These private corporate groups above government that control the Western intelligence agencies, and they play the nations off against each other to bring in bankruptcy and war and death and control with themselves at the top. I mean, you understand that a state of war between the two Koreas is now in effect after armistice ended, after 56 plus years? Do you understand that North Korea ends armistice, threatens to attack North Korea, and starts shooting off missiles into the sea off of South Korea and Japan? Do you understand Japan said yesterday they're getting ready to hit preemptively? And by the way, they have a right. North Korea is continually firing missiles over their nation, right off their coast. North Korea hit the United States. In fact, did you guys find that article about North Korea did the test missile? Thanks. I forgot the year. I wanted to give people the exact year. Yeah, this is Anchorage Daily News. Newspaper says North Korean missile pieces found in Alaska. Officials puzzled, say closest one splashed down hundreds of miles off coast of Alaska. Oh, they only fired off the coast, but no, they found the missile parts. I'll cover that. That was 2003. This is a country with nukes. Pakistan. Paul Watson did a great article on Monday about how the United States and England and Switzerland, with ABB board chairman at the time, Donald Rumsfeld. He's like the devil. He always appears at the scene of any great crime. Aspartame gets approved after it killed the monkeys they gave it to. He's the guy heading Searle up, and Monsanto gets it approved. He gets the Terminator seed approved. He gives Saddam the WMDs. He's the guy who, under Gerald Ford, starts the continuity of government martial law takeover plan for executive tyranny. I mean, it's Rumsfeld. It's Rumsfeld. He gives the nukes to Pakistan. He gives the nukes to North Korea. Rumsfeld. It's like, I mean, I could see Jesus up on the mountain and the devil appears in a poof of smoke to say, I'll give you all of this, and it's Rumsfeld. I mean, if you want to use the parallel or parable or analogy of the Sith Lord, Palpatine, it's Rumsfeld. I mean, this guy is at the scene of crimes going back 33, 34 years. And I could list hundreds of them. It's everywhere. It's always Rumsfeld. He is a highest level super gopher for the very top elite. He is a henchman of the highest order. He is an imperial legate, probably of a greater order than Henry Kissinger. You can see him in those press conferences, his hand motions, his body language. I mean, he is a genius, and he is seething with dark gulfs of power. He wants death and destruction. He hates America. He hates freedom. And he gave the nukes to North Korea. He was involved giving the nukes to Pakistan. This guy is a monster. Paul Watson's coming up in about 15 after, because I want to go to your calls first. And then look at these other. Russia fears Korea conflict could go nuclear. Interfax. North Korea threatens armed strike, threatens to attack the South. World War III is on if this happens. Comprende. kind of like I was going to take off one day to take my children fishing. I could do that a few times a year. And I had Burmese. He was going to sit in. He was in town at the time making a film. He now lives here. And he was going to be on that day. And I came walking in the office and I said, sorry, you're not on because 888 happened. That was an attempt to start World War III, where NATO, the United States, and Israel, on record, Israel brags on their own papers, launched a sneak attack on South Ossetia with special forces garroting and stabbing in the back and machine gunning Russian peacekeepers in their bases. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, taking your phone calls. If you just joined us, defiant North Korea has fired more rockets into the sea off the coast of Japan. They've broken the 56-year armistice. Now a state of war exists again. No one seems to understand what that means, but that is in Reuters and Associated Press. Key articles up on prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. Iran sends warships to the Gulf of Aden Navy. Reuters, Iran has sent 6 warships international waters, including the Gulf of Aden, to show its ability to confront any foreign threats, its naval commander said 2 days ago. Admiral Sayari, quoted by the ISNA news agency, made the announcement 5 days after Iran said it test-fired a surface-to-surface missile with a range of 2,000 kilometers, putting Israel and the U.S. bases in the area within reach. Folks, everything is accelerating. Iran with Israel. Israel's saying they're getting ready to hit. Netanyahu came out 2 days ago and said, I don't care what the White House says. We're getting ready to hit them. Israel's saying they're getting ready for ground invasions, quote, conventional war. I got stacks of this. Folks, this is off the charts. This is really getting bad. And you know, I hope this is just saber-rattling and it subsides. But all the geopolitical preparations, the economic collapse going along with this, historically, this has the makings of a typhoon in the parallel of storms. This is already a bad tropical depression with 100-mile-an-hour winds. This sucker looks like it's going to get cooking up to 200, 300 miles an hour. I hope that's not the case. Okay, but you got to look out the window and see the tornadoes coming at you. This isn't pretty. This isn't pretty. I mean, a state of war now exists between North and South Korea. Paul Watson, joining us from the United Kingdom, headline at prisonplanet.com, state of war between two Koreas after armistice ended. This is a big deal. And you add to this all the military forces moving around the globe from Eastern Europe through Central Asia, right into the Far East and the Korean Peninsula. This is serious business. Paul Watson.
Well, Alex, good to be back.
Good to have you here. Break down your take on what's happening right now, and then let's get into who really gave North Korea and Pakistan the nukes.
Well, as you just mentioned, North Korea is now repudiating the 1953 armistice, which was it wasn't a peace treaty, it was just basically a ceasefire that ended the Korean War. And now they're saying that is now not in effect, according to an official statement by the Korean Central News Agency. And they're also saying that any attempt to inspect North Korean vessels, which South Korea has said it will do with U.S. help, with the U.S. running the program, will be countered with, quote, prompt and strong military strikes. And we know that as soon as North Korea does anything against South Korea, then the U.S. is going to come to South Korea's aid. North Korea is allied with China, and just as during the Korean War, the Chinese military will support North Korea. And that will only be emphasized more so with the fact that U.S. troops, if they're sent over there, will be right on the border with China, because China borders North Korea. So that's how serious
Exactly.
it is.
I hadn't even made that point that over 1 million Chinese troops were engaging the Marine Corps and Army and Air Force during the Korean conflict, as it was called. This is insane.
Right. So, the armistice in 1953 wasn't even signed by South Korea. It was signed by US and the United Nations. So technically, North Korea and South Korea have always been in a state of war because they never signed a proper peace treaty. But that fragile ceasefire, that armistice, was still virtually in effect until today, when North Korea completely renounced it and basically declared that they're now in a state of war with South Korea. And if South Korea makes any movement whatsoever, then they're going to attack. Whether that's believable with what Kim Jong-il said in the past remains to be seen, but it's a very serious situation. Because if you remember, on the eve of the Iraq War in early 2003,